This is Miss Kaila Taylor, and she is a first-year student who is pursuing medicine, and she would like to become a pediatric pulmonologist. Is that correct? Very good. And so the title of her book is Dream, and she will be reading Words and Inspiration of Martin Luther King. Thank you.
I apologize again. Surely those who are reluctant to do what is asked of them should be the more admired. Surely those who are afraid, who question themselves, who doubt their own abilities, but who, under pressure, rise to the moment, are our true paradigm. Surely the man facing a mass of restless people, who puts aside his prepared speech to say those hauntingly beautiful words, I have a dream. Surely this man becomes a zeitgeist. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. With that speech, Martin Luther King Jr. realized the hopes of 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was the largest civil rights demonstration ever held in the United States. And after a hot summer's afternoon of political speeches, the crowd was listlessly beginning to fray on the edges. But when that soaring, powerful voice began those rhythmic, and cadenced sentences, people became rooted, silent. And when he had finished and stood there, beaded in sweat, and took a step back from the microphones, for a moment, a brief moment, there was a stunned acknowledgement of what King had said. Then a roar of acceptance rose from tens of thousands of throats in tribute to the man who had articulated their lives. Across the country, millions more watched a live television broadcast. The moral face of Black America's demand for equality was undeniable. At the end of that year, 1963, this man, Martin Luther King Jr., would be proclaimed Time Magazine's Man of the Year. The following year, he would be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. At 35, the youngest Peace Prize winner ever, and only the third Black man to receive the honor. In the eyes of his followers and those whose suffering he portrayed, he had become an icon. But it was not a status King sought. Rather, it had been thrust on him, and in a sense, forced him to confront his destiny. The threats, the arrest, the harassment, and, eventually, the assassination. In public, he was a man of the people. In private, he was a reluctant hero. But he was well aware of his own qualities. And because of this, empathized with the people, both those he led and those fears he challenged. We often develop inferiority complexes, and we stumble through life with a feeling of insecurity, a lack of self-confidence, and a sense of impending failure. He told his congregation one Sunday in 1967, a year before he was killed. A fear of what life may bring encourages some persons to wander aimlessly along the frittering road of excessive drink and sexual promiscuity. I know this. I know it from my own personal experiences. This was King in an hour of truthfulness when he needed to reach out to ordinary people in the hopes of arousing their understanding that while he might be the man at the head of the protest marches, the man calling for freedom in the face of police violence, the man incarcerated, he was, too, as vulnerable as they were. And yet, when the hour came, King was quick to put aside his anxieties and face any hardship, no matter how frightening. Then, undaunted, he would act on their behalf. And that selfless courage lay his capacity to inspire. Now I'm going to read a few excerpts from some of his sermons that he had. It may well be that the greatest tragedy of this period of social transition is not the glaring noisiness of the so-called bad people, but the appalling silence of the so-called good people. The important thing about a man is not the color of his skin or the texture of his hair, but the texture and quality of his soul. All humanity is involved in a simple process, and all men are brothers. To the degree that I harm my brother, no matter what he's doing to me, to that extent I am harming myself. That was an extract from the Experiment in Love speech that was given in 1958. I think Alfred Nobel would know what I mean when I say that I accept this award in the spirit of a curator of some precious heirloom, which he holds and trusts for its true owners, all those to whom beauty is truth and truth beauty, and in whose eyes the beauty of genuine brotherhood and peace is more precious than diamonds or silver or gold. That was an extract from the Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. And if any of you are around when I have to meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. And if you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long. Every now and then, I wonder what I want them to say. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention that I have 300 or 400 other awards. That's not important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I'd like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to say that day that I tried to be right on the war question. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try to feed the hungry. And I want you to be able to say that day that I did try in my life to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. That was an extract from the Drum Major Instinct sermon given in February 1968, 2 months before King's assassination. Excerpts from this sermon were played at his nationally televised funeral service in 1968. And last quote, excerpt. The past is strewn with the ruins of the empires of tyranny, and each is a monument not merely to man's blunders, but to his capacity to overcome them. We must meet the forces of hate with the power of love.